Hi everybody and welcome to episode 8 of Breaking the Blueprint with me, Vinay Palmer and Iqbal Javaid. We are here in London today at the head offices of Zoom and we've got a very special guest with us. But before we introduce him, Iqbal, in good tradition for our podcast, what have you been up to over the last couple of weeks?
I think the last time we did our podcast has been a couple of weeks now. We spoke about CX being hijacked by tech vendors. I know we're going to go into that, but it's been kind of a whirlwind since we last had a conversation. Obviously, it was just us kind of reflecting on the guests that we've had up until our kind of 6th episode. So we celebrated the 6th anniversary in that sense. And today, we're delighted to have a new guest with us. We're joined by someone who's been shaping kind of customer experience technology landscape for over 2 decades. Chris Morrissey, who's the GM and global head of CX sales and GTM at Zoom, which is quite a mouthful.
It's a long one.
Yeah,
it's a
long one. But interestingly, before Zoom, Chris spent 7 years at NICE, where he served as SVP, head of international, and across both companies, he's built and scaled customer experience solutions worldwide. So I felt like the journey that we've been on since we've been discussing customer experience, I think it's a nice place to come and speak to an industry leader, particularly in technology, to get his perspective on.
Sure.
So Chris, please introduce yourself. Tell us a little bit about why CX. Why is it such a big passion for you?
Yeah, no, and thanks for the intro and the very long title there.
You win the prize for the longest title ever for a guest.
So, I've been in, I think, 20 years as being generous, but I stopped dating myself, so it's probably closer to the 3 number there. But that would date me. But like most of us, we talked earlier today, right? Like when I was going to university, I wasn't going down the list like doctor, no, lawyer, no, CX, yes, that's what I want to do. Like you don't go to university for it, you just kind of go and carve out a path. And then most of us that are in here land here through very different paths. And then if you like it, you stay in it forever. And if you don't, you do a stint. And I'm one of those people that just was like passionate about it. And from 30 years ago when I was a part of a very small startup that we actually ended up selling, which is how I landed at NICE. But it's weird, when I first started, it was more the recording platform, and I would have friends like make fun of me, like, so what, you sell on voicemail? Like, I'm like, well, not really, but then I try to explain it and they would tune out, right? Like, okay, I don't really care. But you fast forward to today, like what I was really more passionate about, and I love technology, but it's not really what my passion is. My passion is really like, how do you actually help brands deliver a really good customer experience? Because we're all customers, right? We've all had great experiences, and we all had very bad ones. Yeah. And the way I'm wired is I know I'm not like everybody, but like I pay premium for good service, and I will run away very fast from bad service, and I'm okay with that. Yeah. Right. So if I can help brands, like I feel like what I'm doing, like I kind of live how I like want to help other businesses, right? And that's how I customer experience. And I'm like, whether it be contact centers, which, I think that term's getting a little bit long in the tooth because it's not really, I think contact center, you think of like people sitting in a room with a bunch of phones, which is really some of that, but it's much broader than that. But anyway, like contact centers, but even like services and restaurants, any service industry, it's very easy to make the difference between an absolute exceptional moment where you become an advocate for life and you promote that company and you stay there forever, to a horrendous moment. And it's a very fine line between it. And sometimes, what I've doing this long enough, I think technology is the difference. Right? Not always. Right? Not always. Technology is not a panacea. It doesn't solve all problems, but I think in many cases, technology doesn't enable agents, supervisors, managers, executives to do what they really want to get done. So you say, go deliver this, and here's a 3-wheeled wagon, go move these bricks. Right?
It's very true. I mean, we're surrounded by, I had this conversation with someone, like, because of the role I'm in, I'm probably tuned in more, so everywhere we go, I'm always looking at what's going on. My wife hates going out for dinner with me because she's like, can we just go somewhere where you're not going to complain? And it's not that I complain, I just spot things, and I spot opportunities where exactly what you said, it's just a sidestep. It's not even a leap. A sidestep can take so many of the experiences that we have in our lives are a 7 out of 10 or a 6 out of 10, which are not so bad that we're not going to complain, but not so good that we're really going to come back in a hurry.
Yeah.
You're not helping the promoter score.
Exactly. and it only takes a small shift to go from a 7 to a 9 and a 10.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Really small things. And I agree that technology is a great enabler for us to be able to do that. And so, Chris, just before we dive into the main body of the podcast, and great introduction, just for people watching this who aren't familiar with Zoom, other than during COVID times when they were on a video call to family, or it's a way of keeping in touch. Zoom in the CX space, just give us a quick explainer about what you're doing, what Zoom is in that space, the kind of things you do, and then we'll dive into the podcast.
Yeah, I'll try to make it quick. But it's been a very, very rapid journey in 2 years. But I think probably one of the most important messages we try to get to everybody, Zoom as a company, is Zoom is much more than meetings. And this goes beyond the CX landscape too. We're talking about events and marketing with webinars and events. We have our revenue accelerator. We have the CX platform. We have AIC for the workplace, phone. There's so much that we offer. One of the good news, bad news with being so well known for having meetings and video is it's like that's what you're a meetings video company. Yeah. Now the good news is we have a very good reputation for doing that very well, right? And being hyper focused on our customers. But then we have to do education. Like, yes, we do that very well, but we have this broader portfolio. So about 2 years ago, I get a call about they were looking to kind of really launch they had a CX product market. It was, I think at that point, it was more like a voice centric ACD.
Video, I would say.
Video, it was a video first for sure. True. Like, voice. They probably actually, I think they were the first video native, ACD. And I was like, at my first reaction, it was like I feel like I'm being punked because I don't think Zoom has a contact center platform. Like, I think it was my buddy calling me trying to get me to go take an interview that doesn't really exist. But no, like I was actually very impressed with all the people I met in the interview, and I think one of the first things that got me attracted to really come over was the acknowledgement and the willingness to invest that CX isn't a feature of a phone. That was my biggest fear. Like, CX is a discipline, right? In all areas of the business, right? It's pre-sales, sales, how you message, who you talk to, services, partner ecosystem. Everything is different. So just because you have a UC platform doesn't mean you've earned the right to be a serious contender in CX. And these are conversations I had in the early process. And all the answers were like, we agree, we want to be a CX vendor. We want to lead it, we want to innovate fast. Come help us do it. And so that was the answer. Like, they were willing to understand it was a discipline, not a feature, right? And that was kind of a pivotal decision moment for me. And by the way, they have, I say they, we now, we've honored that in spades in terms of building the discipline, so it's very exciting. And we've innovated, and we'll talk a bit more about this. Everything's organic. I think it's fairly public knowledge that there's been a couple rumors in the past about acquisitions. Are we going to get into the space through an acquisition, or are we going to, do we do this natively? And I think we danced on a couple of those options for a couple of years, and fast forward in 2 short years, we are all native built on the same Zoom cloud that runs, million plus simultaneous meetings and all that stuff. Right? So it's super exciting about what we're doing with CX.
Yeah, and I think that trajectory is pretty clear. I would say, a lot of the analysts in the industry have been very skeptical around Zoom's kind of, they've always felt actually Zoom can't get there without acquisition, and I've kind of seen firsthand that actually to build it organically, taking your time with it to do it properly is starting to now prove dividends, right? You guys are starting to see a lot of success, and that's a real testament to how you've built a discipline within this business to treat CX as as an industry that you've kind of taken to market with the brand. I think the heritage of the brand's been very helpful.
Very
I think,
helpful.
When you turn up to a meeting, and I've said this in the past, haven't I? When you tell a customer you're from Zoom, you've kind of done half the job already, because they have such good memories. And I know you always talk about memories. They still remember that time during COVID where they had that conversation with their grandmother. Even my bank manager recently, I was speaking to her, and she said, I see you used to work for Zoom. and she just remembers all these great memories from that time.
Yeah.
And that's great leverage.
It's-
When you're sat in front of a customer and you bring up a brand like this, I think
It's very refreshing to have meetings start that way, for sure.
Yeah.
But I do remember one of the things that I took, and they asked, like, why is Zoom and CX? It seems like a very different trajectory than what the path Zoom was on. And going back to your point, if you think about the early days when we had the video meetings, and you look at like Eric's why, like what was he passionate about, right? And yes, he's an amazing, engineer and developer, and the platform is amazing, but his why was, I wanted people to collaborate and connect better and deliver happiness, right? That was his why, but it was through the lens of employees, right, at the time.
Yeah.
But if you think about so a brand wanted to make sure that their employees collaborated better, experienced happiness, could connect better, a better experience, right? Easier, reliable, high quality, all those things, right?
Yeah.
Don't brands want that kind of same theme for their customers?
Exactly. Extend that to your customers.
Extend that to the customers. So I argue, I don't think there's this sharp left that some of our competitors I think the narrative is easy to say, this is Zoom, like, so out of left field for Zoom to do this. I'm like, no, this is actually a very natural progression if you look at the why of Zoom heritage.
Yeah.
And it's interesting, like, in our last podcast, I threw out this phrase, which was, I think CX has been hijacked. The term CX has been hijacked, and in many ways hijacked by technology companies that talk about CX, but it's very much from the technologist vendor perspective. So you kind of go on, they're a SaaS platform, but they're talking about, we've got CX this and CX that. And really, the cynic says, well, you're just interested in selling as licenses or technology into the platform. And actually, a lot of the thought leadership that you see out, is very tech vendor driven. It's the perspective of people trying to sell platforms into organizations, and not so much people like me that were leading CX in organizations really sharing that, or at least it doesn't seem that they have the same, an equal platform or voice in terms of amplification. So when somebody says CX has been hijacked by tech vendors, somebody like me sitting there saying that to you, what's your take on that? How do you feel about it?
I would say there's probably a grain of truth to it. But for several reasons. One is there's a lot of markets that historically have been adjacent, and no one was really super excited to claim they were part of a contact center market, right? It didn't have that sexy name. It didn't have this kind of real glamorous appeal. It didn't seem like the type of conversations were happening in boardrooms. So like ticketing platforms and CRM platforms and other, adjacent, just didn't really you do you and we'll do us and we'll coexist forever. Customer experience becomes much more of a kind of strategic boardroom type conversation, right? And then you start talking about system of engagement and system of record, and you really need both to deliver better customer experience. So more vendors are talking about being in the space than ever before, right? This is convergence happening. So I think that's one of the reasons it's being hijacked, or the perception maybe is being hijacked, is because way more vendors are talking about it than talked about contact centers, say 10 years ago, right? So you're getting it from any vendor that touches any part of that customer journey is a customer experience platform. So you'll hear from every vendor in the journey. And then the other thing I think is interesting is, and you mentioned, we talked a little bit about the kind of the native organic growth of Zoom versus acquisitions, and I've written a kind of a editorial on this, usually between the hours 1 a.m. and 4 a.m. when I'm not sleeping. I just gotta get to print yet. Maybe I'll just share it. I don't have to print it. But it's and I say some of the contact center vendors out there are tremendous marketers, tons of hats off to the marketing, right? And the messaging, whether it be product messaging, whether that be how they go about and message the brand. But one of the things that they all kind of say on the product side is one unified platform, orchestration, data in one place, and if you really investigate those comments and you scratch the surface, when you say one, is it one because you have one logo on all those products, or is it really one shared infrastructure that's driving it all, right? And by the way, I'm a huge fan of M&A, so I'm not saying M&A is not an approach. In fact, I know Zoom's very inquisitive in the market all the time, but the point being is the reason Zoom could innovate so fast, and I think it surprised analysts, customers, partners, like it surprised a lot of people how fast, is because there's a lot of technical debt with taking a premise platform, tying it to this cloud platform, tying it to this other cloud platform that was acquired, tying it to this OEM product here, and then building in a way where user-wise, administration-wise, workflow-wise, it all operates as one.
Yeah.
Tremendous amount of technical debt there, right? And that's not innovation debt, right? That's just make it work as it used to together better debt.
Yeah.
And with Zoom, when we have none of that, everything is just innovation. Right?
Yeah, because the plumbing is just, it's a given, it's there already, right? And I think there's a huge focus in getting the plumbing right. Just connecting all the dots together between the different systems. Even to be honest with you, a lot of customers that I come across are still over there right now, where they've got all these systems being plumbed together. And they are trying to figure out how we can try and consolidate this. And there is a lot of pressure coming from customers, hence why we're seeing, you know, in the market right now, you know, Cognigy has been acquired by your previous employer.
Yep.
We've seen Verin and Calabria kind of join forces. So there's pressure because customers are like, I don't want to buy a separate workforce management solution. I don't want a separate vendor for even my CRM maybe.
Sure.
And actually we hear it from CRM owners, they're putting pressure on their CRM, but we just want you guys to handle everything. CX related.
And the irony being that that's exactly what customers on the outside want: simple, easy, stress-free. The same principles, the same principles drive that internal experience. So, you know, if I'm leading CX in an organization, I want to work with a partner or a vendor who's going to make it simple, easy, and stress-free for me to deal with. And I don't want to be worrying about 15 different platforms, you know, different ways that this connects. That's the plumbing. You're the expert. You're the plumber. You help me fix that. What I'm worried about is the outcome. What are my customers going to feel on the other end of this? When they call in the future, is it better? Is it worse? Is it the same? When they interact with my website, my chatbot, is it the better, the same, the worse? Like, how is that really going to manifest itself? Because what I'm worried about and what I'm concerned about is my whole gambit is I want customers to come back, tell their friends, and spend more. Like, if it's not achieving those three outcomes, why am I doing what I'm doing? And so the technology has to enable that to happen. And I think sometimes internally, at least, the conversation, people can get caught in it being focused on the tech. And we know we're talking about the value that a great partner can add, which is it's not just the implementation of the technology, but actually it's that, how do I leverage that platform and maximize the features that I brought? You know, I think I posted the other day about, I'm a member of 19 different loyalty programs. I probably use 3, but they've all got these benefits, but no one's reminding me about the benefits I've got in those loyalty programs. So then I sign up to something else and they go, oh, you get free coffee with this. Oh, that's great. But then I forget that I've got it with Octopus, and I've got it with, you know, Compare the Market, and I've got it with, and so like in that, and if you take that analogy in an organization, people can run off and find different point-to-point solutions for specific problems. And you end up with I think it was Neris Caulfield, when I was on a podcast with her, she termed the phrase Frankenstack, you know, like a Frankenstack of technology that's just stuff put together. And you end up with that. And actually, often, if you look inwardly at what you have, you can get the results you're looking for from technology you've already got deployed in the organization. But I just don't think, those conversations internally happen enough, but also from the outside, the partners and vendors that you're in aren't driving that conversation enough either.
It's difficult. I think everybody's trying to solve for this problem right now because we're all motivated and driven by, you know, how we're compensated ultimately, right? So when you sold a solution into a customer, what's the incentive for the vendor or even the partner to keep going back in and say, are you getting value from it? Let's spend some time together. Let's understand your business better. So somebody has to compensate the partner or the vendor to help the customer get more value from the solution. But the danger is, as you've said, these point solutions still continue to happen. In the world of cloud and a credit card, you can just go in and just go and buy a chatbot to deal with it. But then it's not solving the bigger problem for you, and you're not looking at it holistically, right? And I think this is where Zoom's taken a bit of a different approach, is trying to join those dots together It has its challenges, like I must say, but you know, I mean, what's your perception on consolidation?
Yeah, I don't think it's an either or. I mean, like,
Yeah.
you have to do both, right, in this day and age. So anyone that came in and said, like, you want ticketing and bots and CRM and digital channels, okay, buy me and I don't touch to any other platform,
Yeah.
you're not going to win,
Yeah,
right? It's not realistic, right? So you have to say, we have the capabilities to do all these things, but we'll meet you where at your journey. If that means you want to use this voice bot and this WFM and this kind of agent platform, we can bring those together. So I think you'll need part of that for at least the foreseeable future. Because the reality is, back to the Frankenstack, which I've heard for years in the space, but it's like, those all have like different contract end dates, different durations, different versions. So as a brand, I'm like, I can't just replace all of them. I have 3 years left on this contract, 3 months left on this one. This one I just renewed for 5 years, right? So they have different life cycles they're dealing with, right, financially too. So they even if it exists, I can't just rip everything out and like, I'm going to keep this core platform. Do you work with that platform?
Yeah.
And you have to say yes.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, that's
We'll
the
make it
answer.
work, yeah.
Yeah.
Now the extreme now is to your point, the world of voice bots.
Yeah.
I think 3 started today. 5 started yesterday,
Yeah.
right? Like, there's like I can't even tell you how many of them are right now. And I know about this many of them, and that's like, you know, in a list of this, and that's probably 20, right? So there's way more that I don't know. And some of them are good. Like, it's not even that they're good or they're bad, but this market will not support 250 voice bot vendors
Yeah. No.
in 18 months from now. There will be massive consolidation. I think Cognigy, it was very smart to be one of the earlier, the valuation was very impressive, so congratulations to both NICE and Cognigy on that one. But I don't think you're gonna see the day of, for much longer, where there might be 1 or 2 more, right? But after that, a $10 million revenue voice bot company isn't going to command 700 million, 800 million. It's just not going to be worth that, right? Because there's 200 other vendors that are going to be like 5 million, 2 million, 10 million, 1 million.
Yeah.
So
I think my argument to that is that there is still this thing around best in class, and when you have an organization that's totally focused on delivering the best possible voice bot they can, like a Poly AI
sure.
or a Cognigy, whatever, they can really refine that product to deliver a really good experience. And likes of NICE, obviously I'm not sure what they're going to do with Cognigy, but they've got different focuses and different priorities, right? So eventually it will become one product, maybe become CX1, part of CX1. Will it continue to innovate at the same level as an individual product? And I think there's still always a space for best in class when it comes to capabilities like a voice bot, because it's such a big thing right now.
Yeah, like I think we're at a place now where Zoom would say we have a virtual agent, we'd love to show it to you, we'd love to share a roadmap and some use cases. But if it's a Cognigy or if it's Yellow or Poly, or pick one, we'll work with them too. Yeah. There is value, however, I think in a unified experience, because in that journey, ideally all the calls are contained right in the self-service. Yeah. If they're not, you need a seamless, flow to a human where the human has contextual awareness, content, what happened, right? All that. So all that knowledge needs to be transferred seamlessly to an agent. So it's a continuous conversation, not like, how can I help you? Like, I just talking to a bot for an hour. Don't ask me the same questions, kind of thing.
It's your fault for speaking to a bot right now.
Yeah, that is also true. I usually get about 6 seconds and I'm out. Yeah. But then also, if you think about a unified platform, and you can look at human engagements, right? Like human to customer engagements, and bot to customer engagements, and look at them unified in terms of like measure them the same, what's happening, where do you hire, where's the lowest customer effort, where's the highest CSAT, use your best calls between your human agents and your customers to actually train your voice bot, and use your best voice bot engagements to train your humans, because through expert assist and guidance, and at the same time keeping them the same experience. Because if these are siloed experiences where I have this really cool voice bot doing this thing over here, and I have this really cool expert assist solution over here guiding humans this
Yeah.
way, invariably what you're doing is you're creating a different experience depending upon how you engage with the brand, which is, I would argue that's not what brands want to do.
Yeah.
No, it's not. It's funny, isn't it? And again, you know, the kind of what we're trying to achieve on the outside. You know, like I said at the top, I've been involved with this industry for 30 years, and I have heard year after year after year, you know, omni-channel, seamless experience. Every report says customers want seamless experience.
Yeah.
And we try to deliver that to them on the outside, but on the inside, you've still got agents dealing with 5 or 6 different screens, 7 or 8 different systems. You know, having to transfer customers from one team to another team because they can't access that because of you know, access protocol or not being able to train them on knowledge because they don't know that product or service. And so, how can you ever deliver that? The unified thing is really from the outside as a customer. I want to feel like it's seamless, and I want to feel like it all hangs together. On internally, that's your job to deliver it, but you can't deliver it if it's all separated.
That's you said it much more eloquently than I think I used a 3-wheeled wagon, but but your 6 screens that agents have to navigate is the same thing. We're like, here's 6 screens, copy here, open that one page, pull up the knowledge, and by the way, your number one job is to keep the customer happy. You're like, but here's 85 manual steps you have to do while you're doing that. You just gave that agent a 3-wheeled wagon. They want to do the right thing. It's just hard.
Exactly. You're taking away their ability to really focus on the customer and listen and understand and interact, and then we're penalising them in call evaluations where they're not doing that because they're distracted by navigating all of these systems.
Have you seen my screen here?
Have you seen I've got to copy and paste this from this?
I feel for it. It could be a thankless job in many ways.
It is. And I guess just kind of building that out. So you know, what I'm hearing in there, and you said it, you know, clearly it's part of Zoom's founding values, principles, vision around this whole collaborative piece, allowing people to collaborate. And I think what I'm hearing there is, you're going to have vendors at different points in their cycle, different points of contracts, but really the key here is those that will win are going to be those that can play nice with other people. Nice as in not the place you used to work, but nice, but who can play nice with each other, have that connectivity, work with other platforms, and integrate into something existing, and add to that experience and make it better, rather than having to rip out stuff. And I think the other value thing is, I guess, you know, if I'm sitting there as a vendor, I'm going, actually, if I increase the adoption rate for my client of how much they're using on my platform, when it does come to renewal, when it does come to it's time to think about, do you want to switch or stay, I'm so wedded to you because it's so ingrained in what we do that it makes it really hard for me to leave. For all the right reasons, because I'm getting value out of the platform. And you know, we touched a little bit on customer success earlier on in our preparation around this, and we were talking about, you know, it started as it's a rebadged account manager, still very much this. In many cases, it's still very much how many more licenses can I upsell, cross-sell, whatever. But the investment in it is really how do I work with the client to help them to get best value about what I've sold them? Because to the previous point, the more that they're using my platform, the more and then they become an internal advocate for it. The greater their propensity to want to stick with something they know than go for. You know, nobody wants to be the CEO that wakes up the following morning after a tech deployment and finds that it's all fallen down, nothing's working, customers are screaming like it's going crazy. You want a good night's sleep and be able to get, not that they sleep very well at night anyway, but you want to be able to, you don't want the headlines for those reasons, right?
And I think from a technical standpoint, you've got, you know, techies who look after these environments are, obviously they just want can you keep the lights on for us? Can the service remain on? Sometimes that's all that's needed, and that's good enough. But I think what we're talking about here is kind of real innovation. Is when you've got a vendor like Zoom by which you don't need to worry about those things anymore, and you don't need a huge technical team either to support that environment. You can, you know, the CX team can focus more on it, and I think that gap is becoming a little bit closer now, where you know, we certainly, you know, when I'm working with customers, particularly around CX, it's still the technical teams that we work with to help spin these solutions up. But once they're up and running, you want to just hand that off to a CX user, supervisors, the agent, and give everybody the freedom to be able to kind of get the best value out of that product. And a lot of that, just going back to the adoption piece, I think it's just the enablement is so crucial and so critical. It's making sure that from the outset you are doing the hard yards to ensure that the solution is built fit for purpose,
Mm-hmm.
and not just, you know, I've had I did an AI workshop a while ago, and they were like, tell us every single AI feature that's available on the contact center, right? Let's list everything. I was like, okay.
Yeah, where to begin?
Yeah, well, exactly. So,
Yeah.
so we went through that exercise, but what does this actually mean to your users? Let's it's got to be a two-way workshop and exercise, right?
It's kind of like I think in the last podcast I used an example. So WD-40 is a great example of, they never say what their product is for. It's the people that use the product that say that these are the uses for it. So they haven't limited it in their marketing. Say WD-40.
But I do know they want at least 3 in every household.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Look at how many uses there are for that product, and those are by users who have played with the product and discovered. And I think in a similar way, people can play with the platform and understand what the potentials are, what some of the features are. But if they're allowed to experiment with it, run with it, they can find those novel cases to go, actually we can deploy it this way and solve this problem. But it comes back to rather than the list of features, let's talk about what are the things that we're trying to solve, what are the problems that we've got right now. And just kind of pivoting a little bit in the conversation, you know, you're talking to organizations about deployments. What are the big, sitting vendor side or platform side, what are the big mistakes that you see or you witness in the boardroom or in those conversations that businesses are making when they're thinking about?
Well, I think like you hit on our topic, like the actual adoption, use case, transformation, continuous investment in not necessarily the product, but in like how you're going to transform your CX strategy. It's not an event, right? But in implementing a new CX platform, in my opinion, it's not an event where I implemented, I deployed, event done, trained, good, next project, right? It's a life cycle. Especially when you have products like Zoom that innovate so fast that, you know, 3 months from now, you know, there'll be all kinds of things that you should be able to take advantage of. I think it's a lot of vendors' accountability to make sure as much as we can that the customers are at least aware of what they are, make it easy for them to train, communications, online training, but there's a much different motion on how to use and how to optimize. Right? How to use is I click these buttons, I build a form, auto QM, or whatever it is I have. This is how you do it. Okay, but even if I know how, did I change my business? Did I look at the right things? And that's really how to optimize. That's how I define the difference. And how to optimize oftentimes isn't staying within one vendor swim lane, right? If you really want to optimize this, if you use a little bit of this from your voice bot and you had a better workflow to your agent force, as an example, or ServiceNow, and then you actually had this knowledge, like let's say you're in a Glean world or something like that, right, for indexing, and you tied all this stuff together, now you're optimizing the customer experience. No one vendor is really going to be great at that because our domain knowledge is very, very, very deep in our product set, and we can help if on train and how to optimize our product set. But we can't necessarily, you know, I think partners are the best ones because they know ticketing very well and Zoom very well and Glean, and they're agnostic, and like you may not need these 3 features from Zoom. Use these 4 from Salesforce, these 27 from Zoom. I'm back and biased. this one from someone else, right? But that might be the right answer. So I think, but ultimately it's the vendor, right? And how the vendor impacts that is, do we as a vendor enable partners to be aware of what our product does and where we integrate with other platforms and how we integrate and what our APIs look like and what our SDKs look like, so our partners can go and amplify that value to a large customer base more than any vendor. I don't think any CX vendor, back to your point, everyone's a CX vendor these days, can do it without a healthy partner ecosystem as a part of the strategy.
It's going back to that whole point around joining the dots together for the customer, isn't it? And you know, understanding how the customers operate, their business processes, what the other systems that they have, and kind of taking a bit of an ownership as to going in confidently and saying, look, you know, we can help you solve these issues, and it's never as simple as enabling the technology, what I say to every customer, that's the easy part.
Yeah.
Like, honestly,
That's how to use.
It's going back to the optimization. It's going back to let's really understand your process. Sometimes the processes are driven by legacy technology as well, what we're finding. So it's here's a chance now for us to take, let's take a step back. Maybe let's improve the process because now we've got this new technology that can help us deliver that.
Yeah.
Maybe part of the kind of challenge, or I guess the transition we've got right now is, at the moment, a lot of the technology conversations, particularly in the AI space, are being led by technologists, people that understand the mechanics of how it works, LLM models and agents. And
I
all
thought
these
it's
kind
not
of
voodoo. I
No,
thought
it's
it was
not
like
voodoo.
black.
It's a little.
Like
I'm sure it is.
There's like if you've seen the new Superman movie, it's a row of monkeys just in the background typing away. But we were talking, and I said I saw this really great clip from one of the ex senior execs at Meta, I think it was, and he was talking about refrigeration, and he said that AI is at a place where refrigeration was important. It was a great invention, changed the world, and people that invented refrigeration made money. But the people that really made money were Coca-Cola, because Coca-Cola used the refrigeration to enable their product. And in a similar way, I think there's a point now we're reaching where the conversation is currently very tech-led about the mechanics. We're starting to get into organizations really getting their head around what's our Coca-Cola moment, what's the deployment that's going to really transform this for our customers. And one of the things that I've been chatting about recently is the exciting opportunities for contact centers to finally be able to flip themselves from a cost center to a value center, not by adding revenue lines through cross-sell and upsell, but by actually the richness of insight that it collects, because the volume of a contact center, an average of 30,000 calls a week or whatever it is, if you take the average call length, there's probably about 600-700 words of conversation in there versus a survey that might get a 5% response rate and 3 or 4 words in a box. The rich and you're hearing from a greater spread of customers. The richness of insight you get in there can be so informative to other teams in the business. So actually, that whole mindset of shifting the contact center leader and the CX leader to be able to sell into the rest of their organization the value of this insight, I think there's a really interesting opportunity coming up for people that get there quick.
That's the next big thing, right? I know we're going to kind of touch on the future, but we've got AI and all these capabilities now, digital experiences and everything else. That's a great way to be able to respond to a customer. How do we get ahead of the game? Using that insight to really drive change in a business that can help deliver a better product, better service in the future. Do you think we're there yet?
I think everyone's talking about AI for sure, right? Everyone's at different stages of and do we start just internally with maybe agent guidance? Do we start with something very simple but very, very powerful, like wrap-up notes?
Yes, exactly.
Right? I mean, that's like very small of what AI can do, but very powerful. So what I say, like, start somewhere, because it's going to move very fast. And I was another neighborhood thing was last week, and the comment was made is like, there's going to be no fast followers in AI.
Yeah.
You're a leader or you're behind, right? It's going to happen that fast. So start doing something. And then a comment that you made earlier, which playing on the the CX platform and having like one platform to like connect everything in AI. I think one of the challenges that we're seeing is like how do I use AI, and then all of a sudden you start embracing other people, and like you have privacy concerns, you have legal concerns, right, and you have all these other kind of conversations popping up. But I love when we talk to customers, and whether it be myself or our team here, if technology wasn't a barrier, like if you forget what you're experiencing, like how would you reimagine customer experience? And I'm not talking about just contact centers. Like I think some vendors think customer experience is the minute someone calls you and the minute you end that call, that's customer experience. I guess the tip of the iceberg. What about when they go to stores, or they go to a dental office, or they go to a medical office, or they go to the website, or they go to a restaurant, or they go to the hospitality? All those things are touch points of the customer experience. So if you could connect that journey, whether they actually called in the contact center or chat with you, or called like someone in finance that wasn't on the contact center platform, or wanted to go to a kiosk experience, or wanted a video for an eye test or a video. I would say there's 2 times I always want video on. I'm talking about my health or my money. I want
to see you.
I want to see you. Right? Those two things. Everything else can be digital. But there's value to video, right? So yeah, I think when you have those conversations and you really start like imagine this, then you realize it gets super exciting, and the reason they're not doing it isn't because these practice leaders have never imagined it. Many of them come up with ideas that I could never even think of. They're like, the problem is the technology doesn't allow them to implement what they want to deliver. Right? So if you like start taking those barriers down, like the conversations get very, very interesting, and I always say I think Zoom is in a better position to actually deliver on the outcomes of those, call it borderless CX conversations.
And that connecting the dots thing is, it is coming up with the idea and the imagination of the future is not difficult in terms of the experience you want to deliver. But the moment you start to think about how do I make that happen, that becomes very hard for somebody who's not the technologist, who's in the organisation putting out fires 9 to 5, then preparing papers for the next meeting, who's running from thing to thing. They don't have the bandwidth to think about that. It's people like us that are able to go in and help them with that fresh thinking and that ability to think. And your point about the again the collaboration piece about connectivity. There's a difference between an agent getting a call summary that says, Vinay called yesterday, this is what he talked about, versus Vinay called yesterday, by the way, he also went into the store and spoke to Alice, and he also went online and tried to do this in account. So now when I've got the summary, it's not just here's what was the last interaction, here's what's been happening over the last few days that's going to give you some contextualization to what he's probably calling about or could be calling about, and how do I empower you to have that better conversation. And the great thing is that whether even outside of the contact center, just in our own lives, we're being exposed to more and more of this. If you go on Google right now, you get an AI summary right at the top of the results. The way that people use ChatGPT gives them the sort of a thing. In my business, I use Utter AI note taker on most of my calls, summarizes the conversation, gives them we're using them.
Zoom's got a flavor of that too.
Zoom's got a note taker as well. There are other services available, but all of those kind of things help make life easier. And as our customers get used to that outside of our environment, when they come to deal with you, they're just going to expect you to have a similar sort of thing. A young person starting in an organization right now, sitting in front of a computer that's 10 years old or whatever it is, that works slower than the device in their pocket, becomes a frustration. They can seamlessly move from app to app on a device, but I've got to have 3 different screens open, 4 different browsers, and like that. Those are the frustrations that then the knock-on effect internally is on attrition. And do they want to stay in that role, or why do I want to navigate this difficult technology when I can?
Well, in modern technology, and not just contact center, like everything, the Ubers of the world, or ride share, or online video on demand, like very general categories, or staying like digital hotels or whatever you brand that category is, right? The switching costs is so easy. It's like literally you could switch brand loyalty in like 3 seconds. I'm no longer doing Lyft, I'm doing Uber. I'm no longer doing Airbnb and whatever case, whichever way it goes. The battleground is going to be in the experience, right? Is what I believe. And then if you go to brands, and like the questions I'll say is in the conversations, or like you have your company, like if I asked you like who in your company is accountable for ensuring that your customers are happy, I don't think any business leader's answer would be like, oh, it's those 4 people out there, right? Well, what about, no, I'm not the contact center. That's the contact center people, right? The answer typically is business of any size, and I'll tell you, at Zoom, 100% Eric's viewpoint, who's accountable for ensuring our customers are happy? Every single employee, every single one of you, right? There's a problem, you help them, right? And if that technology, like it's a very easy, simple, powerful kind of culture principle. But if your technology doesn't make that easy, right, you can't really deliver it. But I think the days where, like, that's why I say contact center is kind of like long in the tooth. It's like, it assumes like those 4 people there are contact center people that are in charge of making sure our customer's happy. I build product, you sell product, we all have roles, but I think customer experience is a horizontal practice,
100%.
Not a vertical practice as a department. Right. And if you think about horizontal CX as a horizontal practice, again, technology conversations take a different path. Workflows take a different path, right?
But do you not think that's because, like in many kind of enterprises, those that are leading the CX vision are not cut across these other, because other departments, like you can talk about marketing or maybe even sales, for instance.
Internal meetings, products.
How often are they speaking to the CX leaders? Is it not incumbent on the CX leader to really kind of step in and almost kind of dictate, actually, this is how we should be?
So I think there's two things in there. I think, and we've talked about this before, the understanding of what CX is, we talked about it up front. Yeah. It's more than the contact center. It's not just that kind of thing, that kind of bit. But whereas if you ask most people what sales and marketing is, most people could tell you what it is. Yeah. When I go to dinner parties, and if I say to somebody I work in customer experience, their eyes glaze over, and they don't really know what I'm talking about. Yeah. And so you have to explain it in a different
That's why I tell people I'm a race car driver.
Yeah, that's it. I should do that. Yeah. I just tell people I'm a Bollywood actor or something. So I think there's partly that. Then I think the second thing is that again, most people leading CX in organisations have landed there by accident. They've grown out of a contact centre or a customer service function, or sometimes a HR function. And so they have a vertical they've grown up into, but they've not been naturally pushed out broader across the different teams. And I think the value really is because you have that horizontal perspective, you have a unique vantage point that your colleagues don't have. So the level of awareness you can give to the team is much broader, because you're speaking to customers across the different point of the journey. Your teams are gathering insight from not just those that got through and managed to speak to you and buy from you and do business with you, but you're also hearing from customers who have tried to and not been able to. You're also hearing from customers who are leaving in their droves and saying, listen, you better get this right, or we're shifting. That intelligence is really valuable. Yeah. But if you're just sharing that in a board report with your vertical that says, these are the 5 complaint reasons, these are the 5 top calls, this is what our NPS is, and it's just a dashboard, and that's what's coming out month in, month out. People become desensitized to it because they don't know what it means. You've got to bring it to life through that storytelling and really help shape in the room what customers are feeling. And I just think that a lot of people struggle to do that, not because they're not bright and intelligent, they're really smart people, but I think it's getting used to that broader ability to network across the organisation and speak the language.
It is difficult to do that, but I think just going back to, I think a lot of the times it's difficult to surface that kind of information because you don't trust perhaps the information that's coming out of the technology that you have. And I think this is where we can play key, with things like AI. You can start to be more confident in being able to kind of extract that level of insight and intelligence. And I don't think we've got there yet. And I think there's obviously a clear design. We're hearing vendors talk about it. Salesforce are a massive advocate of this. They've got a ton of case studies now. I think I mentioned Japan recently. They've been going quite aggressive in Japan around using AI to deliver this kind of insight and intelligence. And I think once you've got that, you're giving your CX leader the power to really confidently go across the business and say, look, we've got real intelligence here to help drive huge outcomes for the business. And I think that's the tipping point. If we can figure a way to deliver that well, where you want to win.
And I think 2 things need to happen. One is you need that internal CX advocate champion that's willing to go and have non-status quo conversations, right? But you also equally need, call it at the C-suite, executive leadership, people that are willing to listen and understand CX is a differentiator. When those 2 things come together, yes, I think CX is definitely a competitive differentiator for our brand. And then you have someone that's willing to challenge status quo. Well, imagine this. Magic can happen, right? But if one of those 2 things are missing, it's going to be slow. And I think both of those things happen.
It is going to be slow, and I think that. Unfortunately, you can't wait for one of those things to happen. You can't wait for a board to go, okay, we're ready to listen. Come and tell me. If you're going to drive change, you've got to put your neck out a little bit here. You've got to be that evangelist, that person saying, this is what I need. I'm giving you some awareness here. It's like that friend where they're doing a behaviour again and again and again, and you can see it, but they can't. But it's your job to tell them, I can see this, because you're doing it for the best intention, right? And the second thing is, if you're a board who's ready to listen and you're not getting that leader, you need to facilitate that either through bringing them up and going, hey, don't just give me the report every month, I want to know this, or you need to make a change. And when that happens and you get that balance of you get that I won't even call it balance. You get that integration of somebody who's leading CX, who's willing to put their neck out the line, is bringing you interesting insight, bringing you some things to look at to really bring to life what's going on, as well as a board that's prepared to listen.
Yeah,
that is your.
Yeah, I think you're spot on, and I think I'm very self-reflective as a person, as a company, as a CX practice, and I think a lot of that onus is on vendors to let these practice leaders know that's even a possibility, right? So even if I was a practice leader and I had these dreams, but I'm like, but that doesn't exist out there, then I'm not going to go bark up a tree because it doesn't. What I'm trying to solve for doesn't exist. So, like, we need to go and let these practice leaders, like, listen, you can have these different kind of conversations. Like, that capability does exist. Maybe not on the platform you're on today, but it does exist. And now they're like, okay, great. Now I feel educated, because some vendors, our job, I always say, we're not always like there to sell. We're there to educate, right? And if we educate and we listen, we will get a customer, right? If we don't listen and we don't educate and we're just trying to sell, then we don't deserve a customer, right? We need to understand what the customer's trying to get done. But if we can let them know, then that practice leader is more emboldened to go and say, I had a wild dream and someone validated my dream wasn't that crazy, so we should do it. Right?
And I think that's where we're going back to your point around vision that these potential CX leaders have, and they've always been limited by the technology. I'm now coming across situations where it's starting to, the balance is going the other way, where the innovation is coming in thick and fast, like a bit too quick, in fact. But we're not even getting the basics fully adopted yet. And they're way behind what the likes of you guys talk about. Like, I go into a customer meeting and where we're looking at transforming their CX, and we may want to start the conversation with all the innovation. It's like, well, that's all well and good, but we haven't got the basics right now. We don't have AI summarization right now, enabled. So it is a journey that everybody's on, and everybody's journey is slightly different. And I think it's always kind of appreciating that fact that whilst the technology is way ahead, it takes time to get and reach that out.
And my analogy is, I have a lot of them. They're not always good, but bear with me here. but like, sometimes you just don't want to go squirrel hunting with an elephant gun, right? If all they need is like their big desire, like, listen, we've rallied around, this is our use case right now, we want to add WhatsApp as a channel, right? Great, let's do that, right? But if you like, great, and then you just incessantly just throw up on them about the 500 other features they didn't ask for, you're not listening, right? So meet them where they're at, let them know you can help them, and say, but once we've run, I just want you to know these other things we can do. Take 5 minutes, just so you know we do them, because I don't want someone else to come in and tell you they do them and you don't think we don't. But let's meet you where we're at. Let's get you this WhatsApp up and running.
It just goes back to that. For me, great CX is once you know your customer.
Exactly.
I read this report from Gartner, and kind of top 500 companies, leaders and companies were quite transparent about the fact that only 14 to 15% felt they knew their customers. And again, why is that? Why is there such a gap? Why do you not know your customers, what they want, what drives them? You've got the intelligence now, you've got the data there to figure this stuff out. Surely, once you understand your customer, then clearly you can deliver a much better experience.
Yeah, completely understand. It completely begins with that. It's just like in your relationship. If you're married and you ask your wife, are you okay? And she says yes. You know when she means it and when she's actually saying no, and you're in trouble and you need to go do something. Like, you can tell. You know from the signals, right? You carry that intelligence.
I say if you have to ask, you already know the
answer. If you have to ask, you're still in that honeymoon period at the beginning of the relationship. Exactly, right? That's it. But over a period, you gather that data. And in organisations, that data has just not been unleashed to the level that it can be potentially unleashed and put into the hands of people that, maybe in years gone by it would have been in an MI dashboard or a Power BI dashboard or in Tableau or somewhere that somebody's trying to visualise it, but actually, democratising it and putting it into people's hands to say, this is what customers are saying, this is how you can use it in product development and design, this is how you use it in your commercial strategy, this is how you use it in marketing and brand design, this is how you use it in premises design and all those kind of things, but it's done at that kind of scale in a really, really powerful way. And I think we're an exciting thing where the future isn't just while we're talking about the future, a nice little segue to kind of take us into the I guess the last part of this conversation, if you were to transport yourself 5 years from now, where do you see all of this going? What's your view?
I'd be on a beach somewhere for sure. No, that aside, like I think, like, I mean, 5 years. It's and I heard a podcast recently where someone says, like, don't, like, strategy in 5 years that's like the stupidest thing you've ever heard, right? Like, it's like things are changing so fast. You're lucky to get a 1 year strategy, right? But that being said, like just about Zoom specifically, we have a lot of like really cool chat GPT like interfaces coming on top of all of our CX and call it telephony data, where you can just engage with it about questions against your unstructured data, the voice conversations and chats, with your structured data, like whether we pull in the CRM data or like talk time, agent ID, right, duration, and just ask a question like, hey, average handle time is going up, what's happening? And it could talk about, well, look at your WFM data and say, well, your scheduling was off and your average call duration went up over here, but those average call went up because it was talking about this topic, which doesn't, like, it look at all this data and just tell you, right? Which, like, and this is coming out. I don't even actually share it yet.
Let's not get you in trouble. I want to be back again.
But the concept, but like if you fast forward beyond that, like it's just forgetting like CCAS vendors or CRM vendors. What I would love to see, because I am ambitiously lazy person, is like a Chris Morrissey agent that interfaces with every brand's agent in the world, right? And I can say, hey, Chris Bot, I want to go to Barcelona on Delta Airlines. I'd love to stay at like a boutique hotel near, Gothic Quarter, and I have some points at this hotel, so there's a brand affiliated with that hotel. I prefer first class. If you can negotiate a good deal for me, and I like dinner reservations at a nice tapas restaurant Thursday night. It just and then Chris Bot, guess that's done in like seconds, talking to Delta Bot and Hilton Bot and Open Table Bot or whatever other bots are out there, right? To complete those tasks, and because those things can happen like instantly, right? And it comes back, say, here's your itinerary. And then you can opt in, like, do I want to, like, say, yes, I want that, or do I just say, I trust you, Chris? Yeah. Which no one ever says, but would you say, I trust you, Chris, go and just book it, or do I want options? Yeah. I think that, like, this bot-to-bot framework, not just from brand to brand, not like just CRM to CCAS, but I'm talking, like, consumer to brand bot experience.
Yeah. I mean, a lot of people talk about that.
But you gave me 5 years.
Yeah, I gave you 5 years. I mean, I'm still there. I think I look at a lot of so I used to DJ years ago, and I look at current like modern DJs and got all this technology that beat matches for you and it tells you the next records price. I'm still at the age where you pull that vinyl out of the crate, you put it down, and you were beat matching live, and you had that feel of the record, and you were adjusting it to get it to beat match, and you were doing it manually. So I think that the role of the bot to make some of that easier, choose the right record because it tells you it's going to beat match, because it's going to do this, is going to increase that, but still some of that involvement from a human experience perspective in the experience. So great, give me the 5 options.
Give me the 3 hotels, 2 restaurants.
Exactly. I still want to be involved in some of that kind of. Otherwise, everything becomes a task, and you lose that the experiential side.
I would argue that the end outcome here is a great holiday, traveling first class. You get to sit exactly where you want in the restaurant of your choice. If you can achieve those outcomes with a bot, who cares? Who cares that you've not had to, negotiate with a real human being? So I think
there could be options. It doesn't have to be all or one. It can come back. We found 3 hotel recommendations, 3 restaurant recommendations. I like that one. That one. Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. But the thing is, that may not be. There may be bias there, because you've got bot-to-bot conversations. When you're speaking to human beings, sort of, look, help me out here. I really, could really do with this. It's my wife's anniversary, or whatever. And then you've got somebody potentially that can do something outside the norm to give you something special. And maybe those moments will be missed.
Well, and it might be like the things, and maybe it's not a vacation. Maybe it's like, I just need to get a dentist appointment.
Yeah. it doesn't matter.
Yeah, and I think it also depends on the transaction itself. Like some of the things you do, I definitely don't want to talk to my car insurance people or renewing a subscription.
Or health,
just
or
let
like
the bot,
health,
just let the bot do that.
Yeah.
But there are other points where you want to be in the conversation a little bit because there is that human experience piece.
Yeah.
But anyway, whatever the future holds, it's going to be exciting.
But if you think about it, it'll get to know you better. Like every algorithm sits like social media, like, and you know, kudos. I don't know if I can plug anything like Instagram. Like Instagram's figured me out because I buy so much on Instagram now. Like every time I'm there, I'm like, I like those. Click. I think I buy more on Instagram than anything else because it just feeds me what I like. It knows me now.
It's incredible. Like I think TikTok Shop's fast become one of the biggest retail spaces in the world. I think it's I think the amount of beauty products sold on TikTok in the UK, if you added it all up, it would be the second largest beauty brand.
Yeah,
in the United Kingdom.
that's incredible.
That's
Imagine your personal bot knowing you that well.
It's that refrigeration moment. TikTok's right. You know, they're leveraging the platform to drive success, and I think that's where I feel like Zoom are in that space where you've kind of allowing customers to be able to do what they want to do best. They've just got to figure out how to use the technology, which is why they come to people like us.
Exactly.
Exactly.
So look, thank you so much.
Thank you. It was great.
Giving us your time today, inviting us into your lovely offices here in London.
I appreciate the weather. You kept it nice for us. Us Californians.
Well, people watching can't see what the weather's like, so we'll just tell you it's sunny. It's 28 degrees outside. No, it's
behind all the clouds.
I see sea blue.
Yeah. Okay. So as usual, thanks for listening. Thanks for watching. If you're watching on YouTube, please click the link below, subscribe, hit the bell, you get all the notifications. Thanks for being on the journey, and we'll see you on the next episode.
Thank you.